Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Reimagining School, Making It Work for Families Remotely. My name is Marisol Salinas, as some of you might know already, and I'm going to do a brief introduction before we dive in. I'm the founder of Essential Wisdom Coaching, where I do academic, leadership, and transpersonal life coaching. And in that life coaching, there are a couple of unique things that I do. One is called Education for Life, which some of this presentation falls under. Basically, how we can use skills and strategies to help make our life a little bit easier for ourselves. And then I also do Essential Wisdom Guidance, which is life coaching with a transpersonal spin where I believe everybody has the answers to their big questions with them. So that's a little bit about Essential Wisdom Coaching. My background is in education and personal development. I hold a master's in educational leadership, and I'm currently a third-year PhD student pursuing integral and transpersonal psychology, where my research interests are in embodied learning and leadership practices and intuition as a leadership development tool. So if anybody is interested in that, give me a ring and we could talk about it. My professional background, like I said, I have just over 20 years experience in the field of education. I started out as a Montessori educator. I've worked with children pre-K through 6th grade in that environment. I've skipped over high schoolers except for managing internships for high school students. I've had some interns. And most of my recent work has been in higher education student support services. So I do academic and career advising. I handle disability services, any sort of learning strategy support. I also regularly teach internship and first-year seminar courses. So really my role in education at this point is with adult learners, college entry students, and really making sure that they are successful. For today's presentation, I would say another qualification that I have is I am a mom whose kids will be doing school remotely. So I have two still living in the house, one going into 7th grade and one entering his senior year of high school. So this topic is really personal, it's really important, and given my background in education, I wanted to be sure to be able to provide for fellow parents some of my skills, some of my expertise to support them as we move forward. So today, those of you who were on earlier, I did mention I'm going to try to cover a lot of content. Hopefully it is meaningful. So really the question today is, how can we rethink and reconstruct our children's school life so that not only they flourish, but we flourish, we're able to get what we need done, and our family flourish during this very unprecedented time. And so I've pulled out some themes, some topics that I think are really critical to success in this, and that is family goals, supporting our students' success, really looking at parent versus teacher roles, scheduling. Scheduling is huge, and I have some tips and strategies for that. And then, of course, maintaining balance. So that's what we're going to cover today. And again, as I'm going through, if you have questions, feel free to chime in. You can unmute yourself and ask. You can type it in the chat, and then also I will stay on after the talk for any additional questions you might have. So I think the first thing that we really need to look at is are our children learning from home, or are we homeschooling? I have heard friends, colleagues, clients of mine really concerned, saying, what am I going to do now? I have to homeschool my children, right? It's kind of the scary freak out moment. Now I'm in charge of their learning. And I think some people are taking the route of homeschooling. I think many of us right now, our children will be learning from home. So I want us to really get a clear mindset on what it is, like what our children are doing, what is happening this academic year, whether it's the beginning of the year or for much longer. Getting our mindsets kind of in a on what it is going to help us gain perspective and shape the outcomes. So I want you to ask yourself, and if you want to, again, if you want to put it in the chat, go ahead, but ask yourself these guiding questions. Who is creating and implementing the curriculum? Who is going to be responsible for assessing your child's learning? Who is assigning grades if your child is in a grade that gets grades? Who is in charge of deciding? And then also, who creates the daily schedule? And I think as you explore those questions, it's going to become a little clearer what is happening in your household. Are your children learning from home, or are you homeschooling? Now, the scheduling piece is kind of tricky. I think both schools and families are creating the daily schedule. But other than that, you probably should have a little clearer picture of what's happening. And I think it's really important to keep that mindset, keep that in thought, because as challenges come with virtual learning, you will definitely need to remember that. I think a critical piece to success with anything, but especially with learning from home, is to establish some family goals. We've had to adapt to new ways of doing work, right? New ways of working. New ways of schooling. The end of last school year was a whirlwind, and it was a quick turnaround in terms of, okay, now we're virtual. And establishing family goals for working and learning from home is going to be critical to the outcomes. So again, I want you to do a little bit of reflection and consider these questions as you start to think about family goals. So I want you to think about, what are the school's expectations? Clearly, the schools have expectations of what they want the students to be doing, what they want the families to be doing. So having a very clear picture of what that is really important. Now, I know some schools are starting this week, some another week, some a little bit later. Schools are really juggling a lot. So you might not have yet all of the expectations, but as you get them, it's really important as a parent that you understand, excuse me, what they want of you. I think we also need to look at our goals as parents. I ask clients often, what are the goals? What are your goals as a parent? What do you wish for your child? What are those big picture things? And I think that's really important. Often people will ask me, and I will say, I want my children to grow up to be independent, free thinkers, and stand up for what's right. Sometimes that doesn't feel good when I have a middle schooler really standing up for what they think is right. But then I remember, like, okay, they're practicing those skills, and this is what I want for them. So really understanding your goals as a parent overall. And then ask, what are your child's goals for this school year, right? Our children have gone through a lot of transition, a lot of adjustment, having to do things very differently. And so asking them what their goals are, I think will help you get a better picture of what it is. So Maybe at the beginning of last year, your child's goal was, I want all A's, right? This year, it might look different. Their goals might be, I want to be able to see my friends. I want to learn some fun stuff. You know, it might not be exactly as what it was for them previously, and it may not actually be what your goals are for your child. I think a lot of us really want our kids to be successful, right? We come from a place of wanting the best for them. And sometimes we lose sight of the big picture, again, our big picture goals as parents, and also what is going to work for our children. So I think that is key. And most of you, it looks like, have children old enough to be able, where you can ask them, like, what are you thinking about this school year? How would you like for it to be? If goal setting isn't something you've done with them before, start it. Say, hey, let's pick a goal. Like, what is something you would like to do this year? And start having those conversations. And then again, as parents, if we are working or going to school or have other outside commitments, you need to understand those expectations. So expectations from your employer, expectations if you yourself are in school, which I'm also juggling that, and your own expectations of yourself in terms of your professional or educational work. As you're thinking through those, again, creating some family goals. This, you know, right now, it's just in the brainstorming phase. And I hope that after this webinar, you will take some time and really, really give it some thought and write down your goals. I'm all about writing them down. It could be one main goal. It could be 2 or 3 goals. Write them down and put them somewhere where your whole family will see them as a reminder, okay? Student success. There are a few things that play into student success, and the first thing is resources. This might seem very obvious, but sometimes the most obvious things, you know, they go past us, or we think they're so obvious that we don't give ourselves enough credit for having done them. So does your child have the resources they need to be successful? As school starts, I believe all, if not many, you know, I think many, if not all, of us are starting remotely, virtually. And many of the resources that they had when they were going to school in person are going to be the same that they need. So for virtual, do they have a computer, a laptop, a tablet, you know, some sort of device that they can access what they need for school? Do they have textbooks? Are they using ebooks? Is everything going to be for them online? So knowing what that looks like. A calendar. I am huge on calendars and planners, and I believe all kids can have a calendar and a planner. So get them one. If that is something that you have not used before, now is the perfect time to start implementing that. Even very young children, preschoolers can draw a picture on a calendar, on a planner of something important to them for that day, for that week. And it's instilling those practices of responsibility and independence and how to schedule our time. And very young children, they know what they draw. Sometimes we don't know what their drawings are, but they do it. Oh, I see empty planners. No, you have to use your planners. So get your children their own calendar, their own planner. If it's an all-in-one calendar planner, that is awesome. Help them to learn to use it. If you don't use those, start practicing. Make it a family affair where one day a week you all sit down and figure out the calendar, work on the planner. It's really going to help you. And then school supplies. What school supplies do they need? So again, just simple resources. Does your child have access? Awesome. That's one step towards success. Another important piece that I think us parents don't often understand or don't often remember in the parenting moments is that our children have their own motivations for things. And another key part of understanding or supporting student success is understanding our child's motivation for achievement, okay? That is going to help them be successful as you approach your family goals for learning at home. And so I'm going to cover this briefly. There's a whole theory, it's achievement motivation theory. In general, people fall under a couple of categories in their motivation for being successful, for achievement. Those are mastery and performance. So mastery is basically a focus on learning for learning's sake, right? So those students may not care about their grades. They might be like, I'm fine. I like science class, but I don't need an A. Like, I'm cool with a B or a C. As a parent, our motivation for achievement might not be the same as our child. So understanding where your child is coming from. So for each theme, there's an approach. So approach to mastery, those children's focus is on learning, and avoidance is where they focus on avoiding misunderstanding or making mistakes. People whose motivation falls under the performance category also have an approach and an avoidance. And those with approach focus on outperforming others. So those are the students who are more competitive, who want that A, who maybe get upset. Oh, I got a 98 and not 100. Like, oh, I'm so upset. Or get bothered when their friend does better on an assignment than they do. You have somebody focused on performance. And then the avoidance of performance, those students focus on avoiding the appearance of not knowing what they're doing or of negative judgments. So they will perform just so that they don't look dumb, right? Understanding how your children work in terms of motivation is again going to help you as you look at your family goals and what schooling is going to look like. If your child isn't focused on getting a certain grade, I don't think you should focus on them getting a certain grade, okay? It's just going to cause conflict, and right now we don't need conflict in our lives. We need things to move slowly. So again, kind of adjusting how we think about things. Now, that doesn't mean your child can slack off and just not do work, but understanding their motivation for achievement is going to help you navigate. This is one of my favorites. Learning styles. Understanding your child's learning style is going to guide you in how to support them while learning from home, while actually offering you more flexibility in how you approach it, okay? So this is where I tell parents, get your mindset out of this is horrible, this is like, I don't know what to do with my child, like this is scary. Like, yes, it is scary. There are unknowns right now, and we don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But understanding your child's learning style is going to allow you to support them. Them being at home, you have so many opportunities to really focus on this, where in traditional school, when they're going to school, this isn't always implemented and can't always be implemented. So there are three main learning styles. There are other theories that branch out and make more, but the easiest is to understand that there are auditory learners, kinesthetic learners, and visual learners. I'm going to dive into each of them a little bit. And our auditory learners actually make up 10 to 15% of the general population. So not a lot of people overall are auditory learners. And these are people where listening is their primary means of learning. These are the students who do very well in lecture style courses where they can sit in class, the teacher's just talking, and they're just absorbing it. And they're like, yeah, I got it. Easy, right? They might not even have to take notes sometimes. These might be students where you want to see their notes and they're like, I didn't take any. And so understanding, like, they might not need to, or they might not need to do it as much. If you have a talker in your house, they could be an auditory learner. These students often benefit from reading out loud. They might talk to themselves while doing assignments. They might struggle with silent reading time because it's just not natural to them. Their ability to hear things, even if it's their own voice, activates their brain. It gets in there in a way that other modalities not as easily. These students often enjoy and are very successful with audiobooks or listening to music while they are doing work. I've had parents of some of my academic coaching clients say, but isn't audiobooks cheating? I want them to read. Well, if your child's at an age where you know that they know how to read, but audiobooks are easier and really help them because they're auditory learners, that is not cheating. It is really utilizing their strengths, okay? So consider audiobooks. A strategy for auditory learners would be let them record either on their phone or buy a little digital recorder. If they have to learn things that we might put on flashcards or that sort of thing, allow them to record it, right? Say it one time in their own voice and play it back as part of their learning strategies, as part of their study skills, because that is their strength, okay? So really thinking, how can you support your auditory learner? Kinesthetic learners. Yay! I like to think I'm a kinesthetic visual learner. We'll see. 30 to 40% of the general population are kinesthetic learners. That's a lot of people, a lot of people. And what that means is they need movement for learning, and oftentimes all of their muscles. So this could be fine motor, where they do, small movements, or gross motor, where they have to move their entire body. Okay, so physical involvement is necessary for their learning. These students typically seem like the restless or distracted students in a traditional classroom. So again, if you have a kinesthetic learner who will be at home, this is awesome. It's actually great news because you will be able to allow them to do movement, to move around, to navigate their learning space in a way that at school, when they're there physically, they're not able to, or not as able to. And so you might have a kinesthetic learner, or you might be a kinesthetic learner if, you tap your foot or your pencil. They might be, doing this, squirming in the desk, rocking in their chair. They might chew on their pencil. Kids that have those chewed up pencils, they might be kinesthetic learners. They might also tend to touch everything. They walk by, they might touch it, or like, ooh, I like these books. That's a kinesthetic learner. And they need that movement. Again, it activates their brain. And so strategies for these learners are anything that involves movement. So some tips that I give to my own students and my academic coaching clients is, if you have to memorize, say you've got like a review sheet, right, for a test, but you have a kinesthetic learner, sitting at a desk staring at that piece of paper is torture. It feels like torture. They're not going to want to do it. They're not going to be successful. So why not let them hop, right? Hop up and down the hallway as they're reviewing, saying it out loud. If you have a kid into any sort of sports, basketball is great. Let them stand there stand at the desk, stand at the table, stand outside, put some tape up with that review sheet and let them bounce the ball as they are reviewing. That movement is going to, again, activate their brain. I am one for dancing. So as I'm working throughout my day, I'm lucky my desk here, it's you know, it can be adjusted. I stand up and I give myself a 2-3 minute dance, right? I put on a really fun song and I dance, dance, dance. And then I'm like back to work because I need that movement to activate and engage myself. So think about that for your children. Also, there is no reason why they can't take a 2-minute break to run around, right? Go run around 2 minutes, come back, get back to work. That actually helps them. Visual learners, again, I'm both visual and kinesthetic, make up 40 to 50% of the general population. That is like half of us are visual learners. And as the word implies, visual learners learn best by seeing the material to be learned. So my recommendations are always to use some visual representation for whatever they're doing. Charts, graphs, diagrams, drawing pictures of their notes instead of just the words. Anything to get it in visual form. Also, if they have a textbook and they have to read the textbook, textbooks are boring. Have them go first through and look at the charts, look at the pictures, through the whole chapter first, just looking at the pictures, because that's going to trigger their brain. It's going to activate them and already get the information so that when they go and read, it's like, okay, I can make the connection to what I already saw. These students learn easily from movies, videos, computer programming, media. So if you have a visual learner, they might find the virtual aspect really engaging, really interesting, especially if, you know, their teacher assigns them to watch a video as part of what they're doing. As a parent, you can support them. So say that they're struggling or you know that they're learning something, find a video on YouTube, like help them find a way to support their learning. I highly, highly recommend for most students, but especially visual learners, which is half of them, to use different colors of ink, different erasers, different colors paper, cool looking paper, you know, whatever, so that they can do their work. And those different colors are triggering, right? Not in a bad way, in a good way. It's going to help trigger their brain to remember information. So think about if you yourself are thinking about something and sometimes you close your eyes. Like I'm closing my eyes because I'm trying to picture it and remember. That's what visual learners do. So if there are ways to box things, circle, bubble, different colors, you know, blue is for really important, purple is, I need to go back and review this. Having visual representations is really, really important. Another key to success, which especially now learning from home, is their learning space, okay? All students are going to need an appropriate learning space. It's also really important to know that it might not look just like school. I know some people, I've talked to some people who are creating whole classrooms in their house. Like, this is going to be our classroom, and it looks just like school. That may work for your family and it may work for your children. But I want you to think about your child, your family's goals, their learning style, and what an appropriate learning space would look like for them. And again, this is a great opportunity for flexibility for your family, for your child, to do things that, again, in traditional schooling, when they're going into the classroom, they may not have the opportunities to do that. So really important. Consider their motivation and especially their learning style, okay? If you have a student who their learning style, they need a separate desk in a corner somewhere where they can just focus, let them do that. If you have a kinesthetic learner, you might need to think about multiple learning spaces so that they can move around. They can go from place to place for the different classes, different subjects, what works for them. And think about how you prefer to work. Prefer, not necessarily how you do work, but what would your preference be in how you work? Do you want to sit in the same spot for 8 hours a day? Maybe not. So as you think about how you want to work, kind of balance that into how might your child, who, our children, even middle school, high school kids need more movement. They're not used to just sitting all the time. So really consider that as you're figuring out your learning space. Also think about the time of day. You know your children and when they are most engaged, right? When they get kind of tired. So think about their energy levels, the time of day, what classes, once you get their schedule and kind of know what their school day is supposed to look like from the school, and figure out how you can make that work for their learning space. I will say, one learning space that I recommend nobody ever, ever, ever use in their house is the bed. Keep your bed, keep your child's bed for sleep, for rest, for relaxation, for, that's their place to rejuvenate their body. So do not let them, if at all possible, don't let them do their schoolwork on their bed. It's going to be too much, and just don't do it. That's my one, do not do. Another please do one that I'm going to tell you is ask your child what their ideal learning space would look like. If you've got a kid that's into building forts, let them build a fort and do their schoolwork in their fort. Ask yourself. I think sometimes as parents, our initial reaction to ideas that maybe we didn't think about or we're just like, what? Is to respond with a no. And I would challenge you to think of why not? Think about how can you say yes? How can this be something that we do? It might take some negotiating, but ask your child, what would that look like? Okay. So let's see, I've got a comment. Oh, they have TVs and game consoles all over. You can easily cover those up. Cover them up. People make covers for TVs.
If I asked my boys, okay, what would your ideal setup be? Oh, we need 3 TVs and our PlayStation and our Xbox right here. I'm like, no, this is for school.
I would say that would be a no, but you could negotiate a time, or make a negotiation to where it doesn't have to be a complete no, where you can squeeze in a tiny little yes to their request. But yeah, no game, no games. And so as you're exploring the learning spaces, and I say spaces because I hope there's more learning spaces in your home, really be creative. Think outside the box. I'll give an example. I just recently bought a hammock for my backyard. And there are times during the day where I do my work in the hammock, and it is great. It is relaxing, and I'm still being productive. So think about that. Throw some pillows on the floor in a corner and make that like a comfy, cozy learning spot. Really kind of think outside the box with it, okay? Another key to success is parental support. And I think as parents, we're like, of course I support my child. Like, yes, this is what I do. But there are some things I think we can all do a little better, or we can remind ourselves about. So students who have parental support are more likely to be successful in school. So what does that look like? Offering encouragement and reassurance. So yes, we encourage our child. Right now, I think our children need reassurance. Like, yes, this is different. Yes, there might be some challenges with what school looks like right now, but I am here. We're going to do this together. Okay? Even just saying that is going to help your child feel like I'm not alone. Like I can turn to my family for support. I think it's important that we also share our own strategies for solving problems. You know, we solve problems all the time. As parents, I would say there's not a day that goes by where we don't have even a tiny problem that we have to navigate, that we have to come to a solution. And I think for adults, we tend to just kind of get in the habit. It's something that we do. But sharing those strategies, modeling that for our children, you know, even just saying at dinner time, like, wow, I had this challenge with work today and it was really hard, but I did a little thinking, you know, whatever your steps are, just kind of verbalizing it so they realize like, oh, wow, they had a problem too. And they came to a solution. So not only are you modeling that, you might be giving them suggestions and opening up the possibility of them coming to you if they have problems that they need help solving. Showing interest in what it's important to them. I know I am guilty of this sometimes. My kids have interests or want to talk to me about something and I have no clue about it. Like I am not up to date on what is happening. But even if you take 5 minutes to solely just be with them and listen and be interested, like if it's something you don't know about, ask questions. Again, it opens those lines of communication and shows that you care. You're spending that time with them. Giving constructive feedback is really important too. And so that does not mean be critical, like, no, you're doing this wrong, or why didn't you do this? You know, not with a negative tone, but really saying things like, I noticed you were pretty distracted today. And offering them some tips or wow, that quiz seemed like it was hard. What can you do differently? Or talking them through what strategies they use and then giving them feedback. Like next time you might want to consider trying this. Okay, so constructive feedback, it kind of falls along the same lines as problem solving, but I think giving them feedback in a constructive manner is really important. And then huge on the list is helping to keep them accountable for their responsibilities. And so, of course, with school stuff. Now, I know a lot of parents, because we don't want our kids to mess up, we want to help them. Sometimes we help a little bit too much and step in before they learn and they realize some natural consequences. So in this one, helping to keep them responsible does not mean chiming in every hour on the hour. Did you do this? Did you do this? You know, you have to do this. Like sometimes we intervene in the attempt to help, and really we're doing a disservice because we're not allowing our child the space and the time to hold themselves accountable and to learn. And hey, I'll tell you, last spring, my son missed a Zoom, right? Came later. Oh no, Mom, I forgot the Zoom at whatever time. And I was like, oh, wow. Did you email your teacher? You know, like, so I let them experience that and kind of deal with that. Was it a huge deal? No. Would I have liked him to be on that Zoom? Yes. Was I okay with letting him make that mistake and learn and walk him through the next steps. Like, if this happens, then you need to communicate with your teacher, send her an email. Then we talked about, what do I put in the email, and those are actually more learning opportunities. So yes, keep your child accountable, but don't do it for them. Responsibilities, I think, with us spending so much time at home, also falls into family responsibilities. If your children are not contributing to family life, doing chores, helping in ways that maybe when school is in person and we're commuting and we have a lot more back and forth, there's more that they can do. So helping them to be responsible in the home is going to help them, again, learn responsibility, independence, help them manage their time, but also help you and your whole family. Okay, so that could look like, hey, I need help with dinner. Pick a day or 2 days, whatever, that you will help me with dinner, right? Just some extra things, and that's going to help everybody. This is, again, I think each slide, I'm like, this is one of my favorites. It's so important. It's like the most important thing. This one really is important. Self-reflection. So I like to think of self-reflection as the overlooked key to success for anyone, not just children and learners. Creating a self-reflection practice for ourselves, our children, and our family can really make significant shifts in family life. And so this could be done daily, weekly, monthly. If you have older kids, after a grading period, and it can be really very simple. So for example, daily. Sometime during the day, our family, we get together at dinner time, all of us. So oftentimes that's a good time to do it. Talk about your highs and lows of the day. Again, if you share something that was a high and a low of yourself, you're modeling that. You're showing that it's okay to have great things, and sometimes not great things happen in your day. Talk about your proudest moment of the day, or a challenge that you were faced with. Okay, just starting to get that practice of thinking about your day and what that looks like. A weekly self-reflection could just be, did I meet my goals this week? If you don't have weekly goals, start setting them. That way you have something to reflect on at the end of the week. Asking, what's something that can be improved, right? Especially for our children. They are not perfect. They're learning. They're navigating so much, even while at home and while they'll be learning from home. But ask them, like, what's something that you think could be improved? Again, then it's their idea. They're doing the self-reflection. They're coming up with solutions, and then they can implement it the next week, rather than the parent saying, you need to do this week, right? It has a different feel. And again, if we want our children to be independent adults, this is going to help them in the long run. Also asking, what didn't happen and why? I do this myself. I'm always saying, I'm going to do great workouts this week, and I don't. And it's like, okay, I didn't do that. Why? What stopped me? What prevented me? And then looking at monthly, or again, after a grading period, what were my accomplishments? Sometimes we have many, and if we don't think about them, our brain just naturally focuses on, the negative things. We remember the stuff that we don't like very much. So really reflecting on accomplishments. Something that I have clients do sometimes is create a jar, right? Just a jar, a cup, a mason jar, whatever. And on little pieces of paper, write every time you have an accomplishment. And it could be little. It could be, oh, I got on my spin bike today, right? That's huge. It could be, I had this awesome webinar for these parents and it felt great. Write down your accomplishments, stick them in the jar, and you will see them, increase over time. So it's a really great way to self-reflect. Also asking, how did I grow? We are always growing. We're always learning. And this is great, again, for modeling for your children. How did you grow this month, Mom? You know? And again, we're modeling for our kids. Asking, what challenged me the most and what can I learn for it? So this self-reflection, it doesn't have to be super formal. It can be informal, just in conversation. If you have a kid that loves to write and journal, awesome. Get them a self-reflection journal that they can do that on their own. Some people are more naturally drawn to that. Some are like, I don't want to do that. That's strange. But you can have those conversations back and forth. And if this is something you don't do, I highly, highly encourage you. You will see great improvement in how you just kind of think and move through your days. Okay, I'm gonna be honest with you. With our kids learning from home, there are going to be times where our role as parent feels more like that as a teacher. That's probably when we're going to be challenged. I'm not going to say that every day is going to be amazing and awesome. That's not the way life works. But during those challenging moments, I want you to remember some key things, okay? Remember your role as a parent. What is your role? If your children were going to the school, what would your role as a parent be? That is your role as a parent. Remember the family goals, okay? The family goals that you set up. That's why I said write them down, put them somewhere where everybody can see them. Because on those challenging days, walk to that piece of paper, walk to it, read it, look at it. And hopefully that will allow you to kind of release some of that unnecessary responsibility. Okay. And remember the school's responsibilities and resources. Again, you are not expected to be your child's teacher. You are expected to be their parent and support them as a parent. If your child is struggling, if you are confused by what they are supposed to be doing, reach out to the school. That is what you would do if your child was going into the school building, right? You would send an email, you would call, you would be concerned as a parent contacting the school. So make sure you remember that. The schools have responsibilities and they have resources, and you need to use those in the times when you or your child need support. So make it very clear. Remember, you are not your child's teacher. It is not your job to spend all day teaching them. It is the school's job. Are there going to be challenges? Yes, because it's remote, it's different, and you can support your child. You can help them. You know, would you help them with their homework? Awesome, do that. Do you need to spend all day with them while they are doing their virtual learning? You know, managing it, controlling it. Did you do this? Did you do that? Probably not. Probably not. And if that's something that you feel you do need to do, please call me. I can help get you past that. Remember, you are a parent, not a teacher. Now, if you are homeschooling, that's a different story. You are, again, call me and we can navigate that a little bit easier. Family schedules. This is a good one. So yes, we all have busy schedules, and managing your family schedule might seem overwhelming. But if you tackle this task from multiple directions, and again, with creativity, it can actually be a gift to your family in balancing work and school and family life. So really important, your student schedules. Like I said before, you have to understand what the school's expectations are for their daily schedule. I just received that for my children. They're going to be busy. They're basically in school all school day. Make it visible. Help them to stay on track. That's what you can do as a parent. Don't feel like you have to, every class change, tell them. If you need to get a dry erase board and put it on there. If you need to teach them how to set reminders on their phone, 5-10 minutes before they're supposed to get on their Zoom, help them with that. That all can be planned in advance. It can be planned on the weekend, so that you're not spending your work day, your time doing your own schoolwork. You're not having to do that. That's the overwhelming piece, right? Help set your child up for success. If that means printing out their schedule, putting it on the wall, get their schedule down. The same for you as a parent. Hopefully you keep a schedule, work schedule, school schedule, really plan your time. I've had parents ask me, well, if my kids are schooling and I'm working, and they need me, what do I do? A really great strategy is schedule, especially if your child is, I would say, upper elementary grade, even lower elementary grade. Most kids can do this. If you set a time that you are going to be available for them, schedule it. Let them know, hey, lunchtime, your lunch break is at this time, my lunch break. Let's have lunch together. Let's connect. If you have a lot of meetings, this was asked of me the other day, I have meetings all day long. No, you don't. You don't have meetings 24/7. That's not true. You might have a lot of meetings. In between your meetings, you might have 5 or 10 minutes. Do a check-in with your kid. Schedule that 5 minutes. Be silly, be funny, dance around, jump up and down, whatever you do, can schedule in that time to check in with your child, have some fun with them. And that's going to help make it more manageable. If you have a very busy work schedule where you can't be interrupted, and that's a concern for you, even very young children, if you need to draw red light, green light, yellow light, like a stoplight, and put a pin, clothespin, a clip, red light, I am too busy, I cannot be disturbed. They can understand that. You maintain that boundary and they will learn. If you have it on red light and then you let them, they're going to know red light does not mean red light. Yellow light is, I'm working, I'm busy, but you can come in. Green light, I am wide open, so even for very young children, they know what red light, green light, yellow light means. Again, set up times. If your child is the type, I was talking to a friend and she's like, my kids just want to ask me the questions. They don't want to, again, hold them accountable. A strategy that I would use in my classroom that I think parents can use is ask yourself, right? So a kid would come up, they had a question, but I knew that they didn't really sit and think with it. Just tell your kid, ask yourself. Ask a friend. They have classmates. Most kids have phones. If they don't, they're going to be on the Zoom. Ask a friend. Ask your teacher, right? And then come to me. So again, teaching them some strategies to, what do I do if I have a problem? Yeah, you're in the house. They're going to want to go to you because you're right there. But teach them those strategies. Ask yourself. Sometimes our kids just don't sit with a challenge long enough. Ask your friend, ask your teacher, then come to me. And if you need to, set a time. Be like, I'm really busy, but 3 o'clock, I can do that. So set up 3 o'clock as your open office hours if you want to, right? 3 o'clock is where we will talk about your challenges for the day. And that will give them time to hopefully work through their challenges. And, as a parent, if they were at school until 3 o'clock, you wouldn't know about those challenges until then, or even later in the evening. So kind of think about how you can do that. Family schedules. So again, if your student has a very clear schedule, you have a very clear schedule, create then a family schedule. I recommend getting a family calendar, those paper ones you can put on a desk for the month, or even ordering a magnetic one that you can put on, like a dry erase that you can put on the refrigerator, and put the very important things for the family members on that calendar. So if I know I have Saturday, 10 o'clock, I have a webinar, that's on the family calendar. Your kids put their important things. Again, it doesn't have to be everything, but the important things where the whole family can see it. And so then we have a better idea. That also lets you know if some reason Tuesday is going to be a wild and crazy day, just we have a lot going on. Hey, dinner time, we're going to have sandwiches for dinner that day. Okay, make things, it's going to make your life easier. I mean, that's just like a simple example of how, you know, everybody sees it, everybody gets accountable, especially if you have older children. It helps them to learn like, hey, if there's something you want to do, you've got to put it on the family calendar. Look at the family calendar, see what's going on. Does it fit in? It's not on the calendar, it's not happening. Okay. Again, it's going to make everybody's life a lot easier. And then I was going to say the most important, it really is right now, maintaining balance. So the unexpected circumstances of COVID-19, and still there's a lot of many unknowns for the future. It's important to try to maintain balance in your everyday life. I recommend making it a priority, like you do your work, like you do your child's learning from home, because it's going to support your family life and will make positive changes. So what does that look like? I think everyone should have self-care practices. That's individual practices for parents and for your children. Even very young children can figure out self-care practice. And when I talk about self-care, I don't mean this could be self-care, but I'm not talking about going and getting a massage or, you know, something that you have to go and do necessarily or go and spend money on. I'm talking about I am going to spend 5 minutes and swing in my hammock at 11 o'clock, because at that time I tend to get frustrated. So coming up with a list of for yourself of things that you can do when you're feeling stressed or overwhelmed. Help your children to come up with strategies for self-care. Again, even very young children can tell you, you know, when I feel mad, this is what I want to do. Awesome. Help make a list. Again, I think putting things on paper, on the wall, somewhere where your child can see their own strategies that they came up with is really important. As a parent, we can support them in saying, hey, you seem a little frustrated. You might want to go look at your self-care list and see if there's something that you can do. Again, you're not telling them what to do. You're giving them constructive feedback. You are modeling that behavior. And again, if your children see you taking care of yourself, what I spend a lot of time in my bathtub since we've been home a lot, and so I tell my kids like, okay, I need to go take some time. I'm gonna hop in the tub, and so just modeling, letting them know like I'm gonna go do this, makes it okay, makes them see that this is really important. And then I would say family care. So those are practices and time spent as a family, which sounds ironic because we are all together quite a lot. But I think this is different. Set aside time for a family game night. Set aside time for something silly and fun, a movie night, something where you can put it on the family schedule. Like, we are going to do this as a family. It's not work. It's not school. It's not all of the other responsibilities. It's just time for us to connect, to have fun time together, to kind of de-stress as a family. And especially if your kids' virtual learning is looking crazy, if your work or your school responsibilities are outrageous, and you know, you just feel kind of all over the place, having a set family care practice time, and that can look like anything you want. It can be as frequent or infrequent as you want. is really, really important in supporting you through this time. If you're interested, if you go to my website, I do have a free recording of a webinar that I did with an organization on creating a radical self-care practice from the framework of joy. So if you're interested in that, it'll give you some great ideas on how to do self-care and family care. And so we're kind of wrapping it up. And I want you to reflect. I think after we're done, definitely do some more thinking and brainstorming. But we talked about today learning from home versus homeschooling. Which is it that you are doing? Really coming up with family goals for learning from home. Ways to support your child's success as a student. Remembering your parent and teacher goals. Family schedules. I am all about all about schedules, and maintaining balance. So I really want you to think, and if you want to share, you can. What you've learned today, what might benefit you and your family, and how you can put this into practice. You know, I hope there were some strategies that were helpful for you, or at least reminders of what you already know. And oops, let me go back. Before I stop the recording, I just wanted to thank all of you for being here, joining me on your weekend. And I know, you know, with school starting, it's your very valuable time, so I appreciate that. If you want to stay in touch with me, you can find more information about me and my coaching on essentialwisdomcoaching.com. You can email me. I'm on Instagram and Facebook also. You can find me. And again, thank you very much. I'm going to stop the recording, but I will stay on if anybody has additional questions.